Hey everyone, Sparks back with another Goddess Victory Nikke video, and we are reviewing the post-buffed Redhood. This is a comprehensive review on everything she does in PvE, PvP, gear, squad mates, raid, whatever. We're going to talk about it all. So real quick, just to adjust the address the buff itself, the buff is insane. The buff is huge. And I want to be clear, Redhood was not bad before. I know we had like a lot of complaints. The community was like going crazy, calling her mid-hood and saying she was dead on arrival because of like the low percentage on her burst damage. But honestly, Redhood was very, very strong before. And in some cases, she was actually capable of out-damaging some of the top tier best damage dealers. And she was also a very flexible unit. That said, people just wanted her to be like the best unit ever no matter what, and I think it's mostly because of her character. She just had a lot of hype around her, or the fact that it was the anniversary. And so, you know, I'll let you be the judge of that, whether that was a good or a bad thing. We definitely have gotten some power creep because of her now with the new buff. She's very, very strong. So let me know if you are actually happy with the buff, if you think that it was good for the game in general. I'll tell you, it was certainly good for Redhood. She's just like completely cracked right now. Here's just a quick example of a before and after picture of some damage from one of the people on my Discord community. She went up 42 million damage with just the buff, and this, I believe, was like a relatively low investment Redhood. So anyway, let's go ahead and move on and start talking about all the tests that I did and, you know, how we can get the most out of her and what some good builds are and what her skills do. So Redhood is a Burst 1, Burst 2, and Burst 3, but I would call her primarily a Burst 3. She's an Iron-type attacker with a sniper rifle, and that sniper turns into a full auto death machine when she bursts. Normally, full charge takes 1 second, and her clip has 6 rounds. Skill 1 activates when she uses a normal attack and increases her charge damage, or charge speed rather, by 3.8% and lasts for 10 seconds, and it stacks up to 5 times. This is quite good and allows her to fire off rapid shots, particularly with some extra charge speed. She becomes one of the most effective quick-firing snipers, second only to Alice. But hold on, she has a lot more that ends up making her even more lethal overall than Alice. This skill also makes any charge speed beyond 100% convert to damage. This is in effect the entire battle. Like, it's just always happening. We'll talk more when we get to gear, but you really want to stack charge speed with Redhood. Skill 2 gives her Pierce all the time. Again, the whole battle, no strings attached. This is so valuable, it's ridiculous. The difference between units that have Pierce and ones that don't is huge when fighting bosses. And then the other 3 effects change depending on which burst she's using. So with burst 1, she increases all allies' defense by 50% for 10 seconds. This is kind of whatever. When using her burst 2, she gives herself a vampire effect similar to Helm and gets 23% of the damage for 10 seconds. This is actually very strong because she deals so much damage. It just actually using her burst 2 is not usually ideal. And when using her burst 3, she increases her own attack by over 70% for 10 seconds. So basically, she boosts her attack as much as Winter Fairy Anne just on her own. Keep in mind, that's even more than Leader, and it lasts twice as long. So her burst. It's kind of interesting, and I'll point out some more things about this later on, but figuring out which burst to use when optimally is kind of complicated. I did a lot of tests, but it's so situational, I can't really help you with a quick recommendation. So I guess the TLDR is most of the time you want her to only be a Burst 3. Burst 2 is kind of an OS button you can use. It will taunt all enemies, and Burst 1 is actually really good, but your burst, if you're bursting on auto, it does some kind of weird stuff to your timing. But it'll give you a massive 77% attack buff to all allies, and you want to use her Burst 3 like every possible moment you can. It greatly expands the AoE of her Pierce shot and auto fires insane damage. This is what got the actual buff, right? And it's just completely cracked now. It's about a 90% stronger than previously. Like, it's actually ridiculous. She was not weak before, and now this burst makes her the best DPS in almost every situation. I don't like speaking in absolutes like that, but even in fights that are far from her ideal situation, she just shreds enemies like the cheap brand of toilet paper you bought on Walmart. Like, what the fuck? I'll talk about squad mates in a second, but even with a less than ideal squad, she clears things easily. So her gear, I recommend the resilience cube. However, the more lines of ammo up you have, the optimal cube might actually switch kind of to the adjutant cube. I've unfortunately gotten 0 ammo lines on my overloads, but I think 1 and 2 are, like 1 or 2 lines is probably the sweet spot. And if you have a highly invested adjutant cube, that would be best. Remember, you'll get faster charge speed, but it also directly increases her damage because of her skill 1 ability. On overloads, I think straight attack is still the highest priority, followed by 1 or 2 lines of ammo, followed by stacking more charge speed. Elemental damage can also be very strong, particularly in the current Ultra Raid. Oh, and for skill levels, just push those as high as you can. Get everything to 10. I mean, what are you even doing if you're holding back on what's probably your strongest unit? So if you look at shooting range tests, she's clearly out damages Alice. She personally does more damage, and the overall damage is significantly higher too. And just for reference, here's a score I got with Modernia and Scarlet instead of using Red Hood and Maxwell. Keep in mind, my Maxwell is relatively low investment, and the shooting range with all its enemies definitely favors Scarlet and Modernia, but even then, Red Hood is doing more damage than either Scarlet or Modernia individually. If this was a boss fight, you feel confident that the overall damage would also be higher with Red Hood and Maxwell than Modernia and Scarlet. Also, damage significantly falls off when you burst 1, 2, and 3 with Red Hood. So as I mentioned before, in most situations, you want to just treat her like a burst 3. Even though it's tempting to have her go off all 3 times at the start, particularly on auto and with cooldown reduction effects and a third burst 3 unit, this makes a lot of weird stuff happen. And if you throw in a burst 0 in the mix, like Tia, things get really weird. And you can end up actually never even bursting with Red Hood after that first time. And, you know, if you just let things happen naturally, so just be warned, 90% of the time you want her to be a burst 3 only. So I mentioned Red Hood kind of works regardless of your squad, but the strongest one I've found, or what I'm currently using in the raid, is Tia, Volume, Naga, Red Hood, and Maxwell. Outside of raids, you'll want to swap Volume for Dorothy on most bosses. In Interception, she can handle everything. Gravedigger, forget the shotgun team. Like, what shotgun team? I'm purposely playing sloppy in these clips that you've been seeing just to demonstrate how Red Hood turns on easy mode. Like, even if you mess up, usually she just handles it. It doesn't really matter. It's crazy. Regardless of what's happening, you can use her against every interception boss for quick clears. Pilgrim Tower is another great spot for her. The new standard team is Dorothy, Nihilster, Red Hood, Scarlet, Modernia. Mix in Snow White or Rapunzel as needed. The only time Red Hood doesn't feel like cheating is in Arena. As a PvP unit, she's good-ish, but as I've said with so many other strong units like Summer, Anise, or whoever, Scarlet and Privity are just so dominant, there just hasn't really been a reason to change that. That said, not everyone has all the units, right? And I'd rank Red Hood very similar to Alice, probably slightly better. The good thing about her is that you can lean into as much burst generation as possible because she can fill in the holes in whatever other missing bursts you might have when making a team. So, is Red Hood good? Yeah, that's the understatement of the year. I hope the community is happy because we absolutely got what we asked for. She's crazy. Honestly, 1 copy is fine if you don't have a lot of resources. Her skills are the most important thing for her. Just push those as high as you can and you'll get tons of damage out of her. But also, as I always say, invest in your best units, the ones that you're using, and Red Hood is definitely that. So I would not feel bad about dumping everything you have into getting more copies either. If you want to make, or if you want to see my summoning experience, link to that video below. It was actually pretty crazy. Streamer luck is real. And speaking of summons, let's do a quick poll right now. We're going to be pulling on the normal banner. Hold up. I have to pull up my game. Okay, here we go. Let's go ahead and use some blue tickets. I have so many of them just because, like, the anniversary was so generous. Here we go. Orange Spark. Nice. See what we get here. Double Red Hood. Wouldn't that be cool? Obviously, I can't get Red Hood. Okay, we got 1 SSR. 1 SSR. Tetra. Blanc. Okay. Yo. I will take the Blanc. Alright, sub like Mihara if you're into that. Thank you to all the channel members, and I'll see you guys on the next stream or the next video.